Hello, everybody. I'm Michele DeLuca, and this is my friend Nancy Proulx, and we are the Power Portal, a podcast about how to enliven and enhance your personal power, body, mind, and spirit for a more fruitful and fulfilling and wonderful life.
Yeah. Now, you had an idea for the main subject of this podcast.
Was it my idea?
I think it was your idea when we came up with it. We were talking a little bit about our bodies aging.
Yes.
Which is...
That always starts the conversation, doesn't it?
I really... Yeah, so, we both end up going home, spending a little time processing the subject and trying to receive some inspiration around it, some personal inspiration, so that everybody can kind of relate to it in a more personal way.
And you always say once we decide what we're going to talk about, then through the course of the week, things come into your life that help you get clarity on the topic.
Yeah.
That didn't happen for me this week. However, there were just little bits because for some reason, I think it's because for me, and obviously you, as we discussed, it's kind of a work in progress. Who do we want to be at this stage of our lives?
Yeah.
I know I'm approaching my 70th birthday, and I have to decide how I feel about the way that looks on my body, and if that's going to, in some manner, disempower me, make me invisible, as women my age sometimes say. But the real topic of our podcast today is loving your body, and how loving your body can heal your body. And we've both given that a good deal of thought, and you have some ideas. Would you like to begin?
Yeah, and you know what, I love how you first brought it in about, not only how the media portrays women and how we need to look, whether we're young or old. I mean, I think that women in general struggle with this, and I love seeing some of the kids that just don't care about it, and they're just pretty free in how they express their body, whether it's tattoos or what they're wearing or their hair color.
I feel the same.
Love that.
I feel the same.
I love that freedom that they have. I think our generation was a little bit more restricted, and one of the examples that came up for me when I first started to really have some wisdom around what power is.
Yes.
And able to kind of also reflect on myself and how sometimes we use how we look to get in the door. And we talked a little bit about this, that,
yes,
like if my daughter's out selling something and I'm out selling something, let me tell you, they're going to buy from my daughter before they buy from me.
It's the nature of, it's not just our culture. We, I think, as humans on the planet during the experiment of our lives, are drawn to beauty.
Yeah.
And so the problem is that you're right. First of all, beauty does get you in the door.
Yeah.
Oftentimes it keeps you in the door no matter what's inside your brain. And our culture is designed that way.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, when you were first talking about loving the way young people are so free with their bodies, you could have been talking 50 years ago as a grown-up 50 years ago, talking about those young hippies and how they're running about with no bras on, the girls are, and the boys have long hair, they don't care.
Yeah.
And I love that perhaps each successive generation is more free with the way they are, and more understanding that a lot of this stuff, particularly the young kids today who are facing social media images, which are often enhanced, or the 100th shot that's been taken to get the very best representation. We all are probably guilty of that. Putting something up on social media that makes us look good, because who would want to put something up on social media that makes you look bad?
Well, since I don't know how to use filters or anything like the young kids, it's me.
It's you? It's definitely
me
you?
on Facebook, yeah. But I do remember, though, and for me, maybe it is more of a tribal thing and how I was raised. And I do remember, like, when I was first really learning about power and how you use power and how you manipulate power and how you use power. And I remember my mother saying to me she was having some problems with herself aging. And this was probably, maybe 15 years ago or so. And
was she worried about her looks or about her brain?
Her looks. Yeah, definitely her looks. Her hair was never, she always looked at somebody else and said, "Oh, that's how I want to look." Or so she was always looking outside of herself. And I remember saying to her, because it came so clearly, it was almost as if it just dropped into me, this inspiration but Mom, if our beauty is our power, that means as we age, we become powerless.
Yes.
And, and I just felt
if that's
into
the truth, yes.
It is so embedded, especially, I think in our culture. I'm not sure about other cultures, may be different. They may respect the elders more, like the Native Americans. Yeah,
certainly they respect their elders more, but I wonder if they want the wrinkly apple face that elders seem to get as they age. The respect for the wisdom of the elders is there in the Native American community and many communities. The matriarchal societies, surely in Italy, or the Spanish matriarchal societies, where the mother does have power. It's infused in her by the culture. Not necessarily out in the corporate world, but certainly in the home. And I think in our melting pot, there's all kinds of different ways to be beautiful and powerful, but the messages we have to concern ourselves with are often the messages that we hear in our own heads. And sometimes we get messages and we're not even sure how they got there. The self-talk, oh my God, look at you today. Look at those bags under your eyes. And I think the self-talk, I often think to myself, would I be friends with that person who's talking in my head in negative ways about me? Of course not. But I don't know where that voice comes from. The other voice I think we worry about is the one from the culture, and particularly this current culture, which is
collective.
Exactly, thick into social media, which judges you by your visual image. And I do agree with you that young people are becoming more free, but on the other hand, I know lots of young people are influenced by those beautiful images and feel less than because of them. So it's a whole melting pot of body imagery and how we feel about ourselves. There are cultural messages coming up from generations ago. You and I talked about that with your mom. My mom used to look in the mirror and sing "I Feel Pretty" to herself, just to convince herself she was looking good. As she got older, she would go, "I feel pretty," and she put her makeup on, and it was not only fun to watch her do that, but I think it was self-talk,
It was so healthy. And, we are, as we're progressing and we're getting more and more science behind the power of our thoughts and our emotions, I think we're learning to become more aware, and that health is also included in that, and that people that have healthy bodies most likely have healthy minds and healthy spirits.
Most likely, I agree with that. I think that is what we should all strive to have, is a healthy body. And I do think that healthy spirits, of course, but the body beautiful part is the part I think is the greatest puzzle, because our culture feeds back so many messages, and we even feed them to each other. Like I just said, women at my age talk about being invisible. So we remind each other about that. And yet we've got television series like Grace and Frankie with Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin, who are in their 80s and make very fabulous love interests in the series that they produced for cable television. And so, but let's talk about, because our overarching theme for today's podcast is how loving your body can heal your body. You want to start with the example that you feel kind of connected to today?
With Dr. Emoto's work? So Dr. Emoto in the 1990s, he's a Japanese researcher, and he started to do some work around the power of just putting a name on a petri dish. There would be water in the petri dish, and he would either put negative or positive emotions on this petri dish and then freeze it. And
like he would write hatred,
love, or
depression,
hate,
or love, joy, words
right.
on labels on petri dishes, and put that water into the petri dishes, and then the petri dishes would go into the
They'd freeze the
freezer.
water.
And then
Yes.
what would happen?
Well, he found that the positive emotions created this crystal that was in symmetry. It was like sacred geometry. It was beautiful. And the ones that were labeled with the negative emotion were blurry and
Muddy,
disruptive
ugly.
and ugly, and just didn't have any symmetry to them at all. So what he said is that, well, our body is 70% water.
If just these words can influence the water and the structure of the water.
Yeah.
And as I recall, he also had people in a different experiment direct their emotions towards the water, and found similar circumstances and similar results. But what would happen is these positive emotions would make these beautiful crystals that you could see under a microscope, or negative emotions would make these ugly images that would show up under a microscope. That is astounding to me. And I loved his book. I'll put a link to his book right below us now. But
He actually came to Niagara Falls
did he really?
to work on
I
the water
did
in
not
Niagara
know that.
Falls. Yeah,
I did not know that.
he had a huge group of people that gathered, and they sent loving intention towards the water at Niagara Falls.
How do I not know
Yeah,
that?
he ended up traveling really around the country, around the world, trying to help treat different water reservoirs in the world.
Well, that certainly is a behavior I'd like to take up from here on in. Let me ask you this, couple of things. First of all, whenever I think of him, I do that with my water at night. I'll say a little prayer of gratitude for the water. And then in the morning when I sip the water, I feel like it's a little blessed. And but there's a reason that you brought this story up, because we're talking about loving our bodies. Carry on.
Well, so if our body is 70% water, this is just emphasizing for us that the power of our thoughts, that the body is this place. It's a place for our spirit to rest. And how can our spirit rest when it's afraid to really root in and really ground into us, because it's not a safe place because of what we say and what we're telling ourselves, and
our
what
psyche says, oh my gosh, look at how old my hands look, or oh, I got this turkey neck, or I hate the way my arms look and my legs are too fat, and oh God, let's not talk about my butt.
Yeah.
We are very often, many of us, not kind to our bodies. And I know ever since I started thinking about being kind to my body, it occurred to me that maybe I should start being grateful for the fact that my legs still work, and that they're strong and sturdy, and that my arms are sturdy, and that I can still carry babies and grandchildren, and just simply that I can still walk about the planet on my own 2 feet. And that is the greatest gift. I obviously have friends my age who are not here because they've passed on. And when I think about beloved friends and people in my life that aren't here and don't have the pleasure of walking about the earth or hugging a grandchild or a beautiful baby, I feel like I'm here to do that for them. And that makes me feel very grateful to my body.
That's
for
beautiful.
its strength.
Yeah. I love that they could be still connected to that feeling through you.
Why, thank you.
Yeah.
It's a work in progress,
Yeah.
of course. This morning I was putting on makeup and going, my gosh, you look a little older today than you looked yesterday. And those are judgment calls, of course. And obviously...
Do you catch yourself when you're doing
absolutely,
that? Yeah.
Absolutely.
And what do you do with it then?
I am grateful, first of all, that I have a face to still see in the mirror. and that and not that it's not like a fear of dying or anything like that. I believe very strongly that something wonderful comes after, but it's more like when I see my face aging, I see the clock ticking, and so I have to just readjust and
I
say,
wonder, do we just have a fear of dying? When we look at ourselves aging, or the fear of our life becoming smaller, or
okay, I'll go with there. For me, I don't think it's so much a fear of dying, although as people like me say, it's not the dying I'm afraid of, it's how you die, the pain that might be involved. And that's interesting, but
the world
also
becoming smaller for us.
That actually is a shot to my heart, even as you say it, because we have to adapt as we age, because despite the fact that my legs are working great, I know people my age whose knees aren't working well any longer, and their elbows ache, and their shoulders ache, and their bodies ache, and that's it's a crapshoot whether or not I'm going to end up like that as well. My body feels healthy and vital right now, but the aging process is different for all of us, and we can't call it.
But that's where we have to call upon the power of our spirit, and that's why we need to work on this power of our spirit at this moment. Think about Superman, right?
Ooh, I love that image. Okay, let's do that. Let's think about Superman.
What was his name? I'm sorry.
Clark Kent.
No, the man that played Superman that fell from the horse.
Oh, Christopher Reeves.
Christopher Reeves. There was a man who he actually fell from a horse. It was a horse injury, and broke his neck and was paralyzed. And he did not curl up.
He did not, did he?
No, he did not. And he kept, he was like, okay, I need to expand my spirit and figure out what else can I possibly do, because I am in this body still.
Right.
And and that was the Superman archetype. It was just interesting to watch how his life played it out to that extent.
To watch him be Superman in a wheelchair without use of his limbs and only use of his mind and his heart and his spirit.
That's why I am so much into really what it is the power of our spirit is learning to love ourselves more. And it's not just about talking ourselves out of it. It's about feeling it. It's about really feeling it. Like your mother, I'm so pretty. I'm so pretty. She felt it. She did
when she was singing.
She wasn't just saying affirmations. She was feeling it.
Yes, she was. And it was lovely. And she sang off key just to make us all laugh. So it was. It's a delight to remember that. And this was well into her late years that she was singing to herself to sell that, and I believe that she believed it as she was doing it at that moment.
So let's talk about a few ways that we can strengthen our spirit.
Okay, let's do that, because
accepting a compliment.
Oh, wow. What do you say if I say, "Oh, Nancy, you look so pretty today"?
Oh, I say, I've learned to say thank you. But what came up the other day? I received a compliment. Oh, it was on my hair, because I was wearing my hair curly, and instead of accepting the compliment, I started to say, "Oh my God, you know how difficult it is to have curly hair and humidity in Buffalo, New York, and so instead of
so the person's going like,
yeah, and I had just." And I've been practicing this for years on accepting a compliment. But you catch yourself, and I had to laugh, and I'm like, oh my, every time we think we've mastered it,
oh my,
life shows up.
We just talked about that before we started.
The next level of a lesson.
Yes, the lessons come again and again and again. I also, when people pay me a compliment, oh, I like your dress, or it's really hard not to say, I don't know, oh, this old thing, or to change the subject. Sometimes I find myself not even responding, and it's funny, because why would that stall us? Why would that stop us in our tracks? Someone saying, "You look great," and so I too, it's a work in progress, learning to accept a compliment. Where else can we go with this?
I would say, with myself, and what I feel now is I feel stronger than ever.
I do too. I really do. I feel very powerful. That's why when I think about aging, and I think about what women say about aging makes you less powerful, I'm inclined to want to fight that to my last breath.
And I wonder if it's because my spirit feels stronger that my body feels stronger. And that's just what's coming up right now. Because I feel, I mean, strength-wise, I feel stronger and more pain-free than ever. And I
That's
wonder
a beautiful thing.
if that is all the work that we have been doing for years and years and years to become aware and strengthen that spirit within us. And I do believe that if we can connect with spirit and really connect even more and more with source, I believe that energy is healing.
Yes,
that everything
I
that
do
comes
too.
into us, that I don't believe in limitation, that, oh, you know what, I have some arthritis in this joint. Well, you know what, I'm just going to free up the resistance in that joint. Maybe I'll just work on freeing up the resistance. And
how would that look?
For me, one of the exercises I would do would be to, like, sometimes it's my hands, and I notice that I clench my hands sometimes if I am in stress. So we're going to have different areas that we're going to hold stress. Everybody has a different part of their body. So what I'll do is I might clench, and then I just might, like, just really relax. Or, like, you did right before, shake it out, shake it out, shake it out. Like, really let that energy.
So if you're feeling achiness,
yeah,
you're definitely holding energy there.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, I'm going to just let that go, and I'm going to become more aware of my body. Because people who do not like their body tend to disassociate more. So they're not present in the body. And all of the work that you and I have been doing, and a lot
all
of
about
the people we are around, we're all working on coming into that body and starting to notice where we're holding resistance and learn to relax around it, and learn to, is there anything, is it just a pattern that I've picked up through life, or is there anything in this situation right now that I need to be aware of? And just being curious about why I'm holding my body like that, and then releasing it.
We started talking about this years ago, like 8 years ago, when you started telling me about this in the barn. We were doing some exercises with the horses. You were showing me how the horses will reflect back to you whether or not you're standing in your power and your truth. And I am still trying to live from trying to live from my heart rather than my head. And it's challenging, and yet the more we talk about it, the more I read about it. And I'm reading books. Whenever I read a spiritual, mystical book, someone's always saying, get into your body, be in your body. The point is, the major work of my life right now is being in my body. And you don't really want to be somewhere where you think it's ugly or broken or aging. Or so would an antidote to what you just said about disliking your body be complimenting yourself, not being able to take compliments, you said. But what about complimenting ourselves? Is that a pathway to learning to love your body?
Definitely. I love how the muscle men and women work in front of a mirror. They just look at my muscles, and it's like mirror work is just
so let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
Mirror work.
Yeah.
Should everyone pretend they're a bodybuilder and that they're posing for competition just for the fun of it?
You know what? They can they can exercise in front of a mirror and just love their body as they're doing that. They can sit in front of the mirror and do intentional reflective work, like, just, can I look at myself, and can I love myself? Can I look into my eyes deeply and feel my spirit and feel how beautiful my spirit is? And if they have resistance, it's like, okay, so don't try to move through it, and don't criticize yourself for having resistance.
Let's say you're looking in the mirror and the only thing you can see, for instance, is your belly, or the fact that your arms are flabby, or the wrinkles under your eyes. Then what's your advice for something like that?
I would, you can't just get rid of the negative, because remember, we've always talked about this, that's disassociating. If we just fly up to our head and say, don't think that,
yes,
don't think that, which is what most of us do, it's still in the body. So it's all about what they say, 30 days to change a thought,
habit, yes,
or a habit. So really working, it's all self-love, working on self-love. This morning I was exercising, doing my yoga, and I realized I played golf 3 days in a row, and as I'm exercising, I'm like, oh, my body's tired. And I'm like, okay, I need to listen to this. I mean, when I was younger, I would have just pushed through it. But as we get older, I think we don't have as much endurance or in our bodies.
That's the challenge of getting older, is learning when to slow down.
Mm-hmm.
Slowing down for some people is the greatest challenge of all.
It is. And that's exactly what I did in my yoga practice today. It was like, okay, I'm not going to keep up with everybody else. I'm going to listen to my body, forcing myself to get out of that competitiveness with my next person next to me, right?
Yes.
Like, I can't hold this pose. I can hold that pose. So, and it's all about recognizing that is resistance, competition, being outside of yourself, looking outside of yourself, instead of just, wow, I'm going to honor my body. I'm not going to beat it up. I'm not going to bully my body into being a specific way today.
Well, what if, for instance, my body just wants to lay on the couch and read a book?
That's what I plan to do the next 2 days to rest my body. Okay,
everything in moderation.
Right.
I remember my mother used to say that.
Yeah,
everything in moderation.
Yeah.
The truth is, working on my own body and trying to stay fit by going to the gym a couple times a week and doing yoga, the red light sauna when I can get there, things like that, a massage, chiropractic. That is kind of the way to honor your body and to take care of it. Our bodies work really hard to get us from place to place to fulfill our desires. We can't do much in life without our bodies, although Christopher Reeve, of course, showed us that even without the use of our bodies, we can be
there are things that we can do
functioning and
to take care
based. Yes.
And again, belief system can come in there. As you're saying that, this is very much coming up in my space right now. Is I wouldn't take care of my body because I always had horses. And it was drilled into me from a very young age that you give up other things because you have horses, and that's a luxury, and you have to pay for your horse. And there was no such thing as a massage. There was no such thing as a facial. There was no such thing as buying a vitamin or taking care.
But all of that was true for the horses.
The horse
right?
had the acupuncture, the chiropractor, the massage, the herbs. But me,
because
no.
You were competing. You were an equestrian competing in equestrian competition. So the horse really did get all of that, or it was the culture of the competition.
Well, and it's also that nurturing part of me. I'll take care of everybody else before I will take care of myself. And it was not because of money that I wouldn't do these things. It was because it was a mental thing in me that's you take care of. You're spending too much money on that. This is a luxury. You're not allowed to take care of yourself.
Also, though, you were very young and you really didn't need as much care for your body as you might right now.
Yes.
And so, getting back to your list, then, so the first thing that we can do about our body is learn to accept a compliment and perhaps even give ourselves some compliments. I was looking in the mirror the other day and I smiled and these wings came up in my eyes and I was like, oh, those look like fairy wings. And I appreciated them and I thought, I really like those there. And that was a new turn of events for me. That's a start. More?
Food we eat.
Okay, so be kind to your body and love your body by how we eat. We have all been told this 10 million times over, but let's talk about it again.
Yeah. How many times have we taken a sip of water and said, and just like for a minute said, oh my God, I could feel it really refreshing me. And it does.
When you do that, when you take a nice cold sip of water and you feel it go all the way down and your body's going like...
Yeah, it's like you could feel every cell just feeling that. The same with, I remember when we were doing archetypes and my husband came, he picked an archetype for him, which was the hedonist. And I'm like, what a horrible archetype. And it's actually a lovely archetype.
It means that you love everything that's luxurious and rich and delicious.
You taste the food and you love it. And, you might like a good bottle of wine or and it's not about overindulgence. It's about the enjoying the experience of it. Look at the beauty of all the desserts maybe that were made for a party.
I'm definitely a hedonist if you're describing
yeah.
it that way. Oh my God.
yeah. So,
but what you're saying, I catch myself. I love to read. Doesn't matter. When I was a kid, I used to just read the cereal boxes, as many of us did while I was eating. I love to occupy myself while I'm eating, and that's. Even when I do it, I'm well aware it's not the best way to ingest your food. You're done with your meal and you haven't even tasted it if you read a book through your whole meal. I'm there to verify that.
Yeah.
And
how about watching TV while
watching
you're
TV?
Eating? Yeah, or the news.
Never, ever, ever watch the news while you're eating. Never, ever.
Your body is stressed in that moment.
Holy Toledo.
And you don't digest.
It's literally a rule in our house. No news on
same with us.
Dinner time. It's because I find even if the news goes on after dinner and I'm doing the dishes, I'm still hollering at the TV, going, "Really, really?"
Yes. Yeah, I know it.
And that's from a journalist.
Yeah. So taking care of our body, not bullying the body.
What does bullying the body look like?
Well, like if I would have really worked through the exercise regimen, really pushed myself instead of listening and saying, you know what, today I'm going to really pay attention to just my breathing as I'm doing this, because I don't want to step out of it. I didn't need to step. My body did not say I needed to, but I needed to slow down, and I think I just needed to be more aware. And I was like, wow. I really feel my thighs today because I walked the golf course yesterday. Usually I ride in a cart.
That's wonderful. No, it is. That's a long walk. I'm not a frequent golfer, but I've golfed on occasion, and I always whine about the walking the 18 holes.
Yeah.
It's a long walk.
Yeah. So just being aware in years before, I would have just pushed myself through it. Even 5 years before this.
Yes, and I think that's your nature, is to just kind of, because you expect, especially as an equestrian, you expect your horses to give their very best, no matter what exercise they're doing, and of course you do the same. I've seen that it's kind of your nature, and to push your body.
I attracted a horse. In the last 5 years, who won't do that. So certain animals come into your life to teach certain lessons, and it's like I finally got it.
Can you describe how that looks when a horse won't do that?
She would just refuse to move. She would stop. It would take a lot to get her going. It was not fun. There was so much resistance.
She's going, I'm tired.
I am not going around in circles anymore. I did that, and I was pressured very much as a young horse. I am not doing that. I want to be me. And when you finally get that, and now I have an enjoyable ride with her, and we're at a place where there is no competition. She needed to be in a space that was not pressured either, which brings up, how do we respond when we're in somebody's space? How should we respond when our body is stressed, when we're around someone?
Okay, describe it. Make it up.
So like being at the most of the boarding facilities in the area, you're expected to work your horse, and you're expected to work them hard.
And if you don't, they go like
and
they talk about you. They think you're a bad horse person.
Right.
Okay, so
so it's like, oh my God, how's my body? My body was responding the same way my horse's body was responding.
Ooh.
Yeah. So I think we have to be careful when we're around people that maybe are not
things of us.
Yeah, and they're not honoring our boundaries or maybe who we are, right?
I love that. I'm going to jump ahead. You might have this one coming, but the secret to life, and the thing I think we all work on if we're trying to evolve and be better and be more respondent to our potential, is to not give a flying flip about what people think of us.
Yeah.
It's nearly impossible, but it is the secret to life. And there's a caveat for me. as a journalist, as someone who relies on, especially someone who does a lot of feature writing or interviews where they hope that the subject will feel comfortable talking to me, I do have to care about what that person thinks, but I do anyway. It's my nature to walk into a situation and say, you look interesting. I love you already. Let's talk about who you are. And throughout my whole career, I don't know why this happens, but when someone opens himself to me in an interview, I always feel kind of loving towards them. And they somehow pick up on that and trust me and tell me things that they might not tell other people.
Right.
Or so I'm told.
Yeah. So they recognize your empathic nature.
So I think that there are cases where we should care, sometimes caring what the police officer thinks when he stops our car.
Yes, absolutely.
Is really important, that we appear adult and sober and things like that. So that was a caveat, but let's go back to what people think about us and how that can destroy our self-esteem.
Well, I teach this with the horses around boundaries. I tell people that there's 3 ways that we can be. There's the person that only thinks of themselves. They're always in their own energy, thinking about what makes them comfortable, and that's it. And then there's the empathic person who's always in everybody else's energy, taking care of everybody else, that never comes to take care of themselves.
I recognize that person.
Yeah. And then there's the balance of learning, wow, there's an in-between. There's a balance. I can feel into myself and the other person at the same time, and make that aware decision of when you are losing power, your power is staying the same, or you're maybe taking power from somebody else, right?
It is all about awareness. I would like to discuss that feeling you get when you know you're being judged, because perhaps, and honestly, you're often not, even though you're sure you are. When you show up in an outfit that's inappropriate, it turns out, or you're wearing the wrong dress, or you hate the dress you wore. And again, this happens to men as well. Do I look all right in this shirt? I think that we worry a lot about what other people think. It's probably very important to have an awareness of what you think they might be thinking, like, oh, I feel like I'm being judged by this group. And then to take a second to let that go and say, well, that's really not my problem. That's really their problem. Is that the way you might do it?
Mainly, you also want to be responsive. Like, what if it's somebody that just is shy and doesn't like really in your face type of new people, or you can sense like, I can regulate my energy a little bit for them so that they're comfortable also. And it's not that you're making yourself any less.
You're just pulling back a little bit,
so that
they're not.
I notice that this is
overwhelmed.
They're not overwhelmed by it. So it's an energy modulation. And again, we do this with the horses.
And I do this. I come from a very large family on both sides, and I do moderate my energy depending on how I assess the person in front of me. Somebody might need a great big hug, and somebody might not like to be touched at all. And I always try to figure out which person is standing in front of me and how they feel about it. Especially, in both sides of my family, everybody's hugging and kissing, and I love that. But it took me a long time to get used to it, because I didn't grow up among either of the families on either side, my father's family or my mother's family. And so moving to New York and being among them more, I really had to get used to all that hugging and kissing, and it took a while, I have to say. Point being, I understand, and that's what helps me modulate or moderate my energy when I come into a room.
Right. Just so that way, and the same with what we have to say sometimes. It's like you can feel into, if I'm working with someone and I feel like, oh, you know what, they're not going to be open to this yet. I can feel that I need to just hold back on this a little bit. It's not, they're not going to be receptive because I can feel into their energy. There will be a point where I say, okay, they're open. Here's the, and so that's part of using empathy as a gift. When we learn to use it as an art.
I love that. Empathy as an art. And I think that it is something that I have worked on in my own life for a very long time. And I know you, as you went through your training to be an intuitive consultant with Carolyn Mays and the work you've done as a horse whisperer and an animal intuitive, it's always about feeling around the energy of the living being in front of you. It's a beautiful thing. But let's bring that back to our own self and our own bodies and the self-love. So we've just agreed that worrying about what other people think of you is probably not your business. You should moderate and modulate depending on how your intuition tells you to behave. But if you change your behavior based on what you're presuming that others think, you might want to take a breath and a step back and figure out first of all, if you're getting a good quality read, or if there's something inside of you that's feeling a little less than at the moment, and allowing that little ugly voice in your head to run rampant.
And in the moment you might not have time to process it. I always just say, go home and process it. Oh, is this dress really inappropriate? No, it's not. It's perfectly fine. It's perfectly fine.
Wear the damn dress.
Right. So it's I think you have to just, sometimes in the moment, it might be something that came up, and what do they say? A judgment from somebody else is 90% about them and 10% about you.
Ooh, I like that. So when does it become vanity, loving your body? Vanity is different than self-love. And I think. And can you speak to that for a second?
Well, I mean, it's all looking for outside approval and allowing yourself to dress and function for the approval outside of yourself, and being absolutely crushed or shocked or frozen in the moment when you don't get that hit
of approval. Yes.
Okay, so it's an inside job, and each person has to just have their own integrity to keep an eye on their own ego.
Okay, so to wrap this up, somebody wants to learn to love their body so that it will heal. Give me the 25 words or less. I say that to you, and I never really expect it to be 25. Give me the kind of roundup of how we can end this podcast so people can walk away with exercises.
We've touched on this. We've talked about the mirror work we can do. We talked about the water. The water. How we eating slowly. Sleeping.
Loving the food, loving the body. Okay,
Sleeping. Not whipping yourself into shape and over exercising, not thinking about the number on the scale, and maybe just how good you feel in your body.
And if you don't feel good in your body, that's obviously a message that you need to begin to pay even more attention to some of these ideas and behaviors, so that when you do look at the number on a scale, it's just a number.
Yeah, and then the ability to rest in your body and observe when you have something negative come up. That's a big one.
That is a big one. And to remember, I think that we are the home for our spirits and our soul. So we want to give them the most beautiful, welcoming, loving, accepting home that we can, so that not only our bodies, but our souls and our minds can flourish.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, love it.
Good. Well, I think we'll wrap this up from here. Thanks so much. Go ahead, have a wonderful day, and don't forget to love yourself.